What does it mean to dream of homelessness? One of the most unsettling dream imagery you could ever experience involves homelessness. Either you're homeless or you're seeing homeless people around you. Homelessness brings to mind feelings of vulnerability, loss, confusion, destitution, and insecurity. It doesn't matter whether you're the one going through it or you're seeing somebody experiencing homelessness. All sorts of negative emotions come to light. It is in this context that a lot of people would associate the experience of being homelessness with the experience of homelessness with the death of their old self, their old comfort and confidence, as well as a sense of loss, possibly even betrayal. But as jarring and unsettling as the dream image or symbology of homelessness may be, it packs quite a bit of meaning as far as our day-to-day waking life. The good news is that for the most part, when you see yourself being homeless or you see somebody you care about reduced to homelessness, this unhoused state in your dreams does not predict that you too will become homeless. Instead, there are certain truths in your waking life that may be so unsettling or are actually in need of closure that your subconscious is using this very extreme and uncomfortable symbol to get your attention. Maybe by drawing your attention to these issues, you will finally come to some sort of resolution. At the very least, you'll start to work on them. What does it mean to dream of being homeless? If the central focus of your dream is about you being unhoused, your subconscious is trying to speak to you regarding certain emotional states as well as realizations that you may have that may not be front and center as far as your day-to-day consciousness goes. For instance, dreaming of being homeless can represent a fear of losing your sense of security. A lot of us base our security on how much money we have, our net worth, how people look at us, our educational attainment, so on and so forth. What do these all have in common? A lot of the times we base our sense of confidence and even our identity on things that can go away. In fact, the economy just needs to make a wrong turn and a lot of our confidence goes up in smoke. It's interesting to note that when you take a typical person off the street, you tell them, okay, all your bank accounts, all your credit cards, as well as your job have gone away. In that instance, they will feel so unsettled that they think they can't be confident anymore. You've shaken them to their core. This shows a lot regarding what the true source of our confidence should be. And if your subconscious is showing you as a homeless person in your night visions, your subconscious is basically trying to draw your attention to the fact that maybe you're basing your confidence as well as your identity on the wrong things. Because if you focus on developing your character, there's 9 times out of 10, you will always land on your feet. It doesn't matter what is happening to the rest of the world. Doesn't matter what's going on at work. Things will be okay because you've invested your time and focus on things that the world cannot shake easily. I'm talking about your talents, your skills, your ability to get along with other people, and ultimately the value you bring to the table when it comes to other people. I once met a salesman at a job that I had a long time ago, and I was just floored by how effective this person is when it comes to sales. The guy would just ring up sales like clockwork and is always the sales leader. He didn't look like much of anything. He dressed pretty decently, but he didn't really jump out of nowhere. You know, there's really nothing attention grabbing as far as his appearance goes. So one day I finally mustered a bit of courage to talk to him and ask him, Mike, what's your secret? We all know that you're always the number one salesman, and I just want to know if you can clue me in. He said, it's no secret at all, because everybody here is talking about the product, how awesome it is, its features. What I do is I listen to people's stories. I ask them, what are the problems you're looking to solve? And then I try to figure out what is the problem behind the problem. And then I walk them through their options. And I don't really care whether they buy the most expensive product so I can get a bigger commission. That's not my priority. My priority is I want to solve this person's real problem. So they may think that they have this problem, but in reality, they have different concerns. So that's what I get into. And that exchange with Mike, the super salesman, brought home the fact that people don't care about what you know until they know that you care. And when you invest in that ability, of course, this varies from person to person in terms of whether they're an introvert or extrovert, as well as the distinct shape of their personality. But if you invest in that quality, you will get an asset that won't be taken away from you. It can't. It's hard baked into your personality. So I'm not saying that you should be somebody that you're not, but we all have that aspect of our personalities, and if we just cultivate that, then we become more confident, because our confidence is not based on what other people can do for us, but the value we bring to the table when we work with other people. Do you see how this works? And your subconscious is showing you that there is some growing insecurity on your part, that maybe you are basing your confidence on things that can easily be taken away from you or could break apart under pressure. As you probably already know, life is uncertain. There's a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs, and maybe it's a good time to focus on soft skills or the right mindset that not only enable you to bounce back after a setback or even a disaster, but to actually end up in a better place. What does it mean to dream of having friends who are homeless? Before we do that, we need to talk about what does it mean to dream of of helping a homeless person. If your mental camera in your dream focuses primarily on you helping a homeless person, maybe by giving them food or a little bit of change to help them out, this is an indication of your need to reconnect, or at least be more aware of your compassionate side. All of us, human beings, have an innate ability to step out of our shell and connect with other people. We all have this ability. Now, of course, this is all in a spectrum. Some have a lot more of this ability, and many have somewhere in the middle, while there are a few that almost have zero ability. But we all have this ability, and your subconscious is showing you through this symbolism that you need to cultivate that aspect of yourself. Not so much because it benefits other people, but ultimately because it is good for you. There is a part of the human psyche that needs to reach out, that needs to feel connected, because it reinforces our perception of our value and usefulness. It helps us feel that we belong. It helps us feel that we have a purpose on this planet. And the more you give, the more fulfilled you become. And you can give in a wide range of ways to the universe around you. You can open a podcast. You can write a blog. You can physically help people by volunteering. You can donate to charity, or if you own a business, you can resolve to be the very best business person you could be, because you earn your money, and when you earn your money, you provide value, because that's how markets work. It's value for value. Whatever it is that you do that sustains your livelihood, that puts money in your pocket, do it with value in mind. Meaning, what is the best I can do for another person in terms of what I already do? Do I sign my name in terms of quality? Do I go above and beyond? Do I produce more? Simply working for somebody else can be a form of compassion, because you just don't do the bare minimum. You seek to contribute. You seek to level up whatever organization you're a part of. So think in broad terms when it comes to compassion and reaching out, because this speaks to a very universal truth about about your existence in this universe. You are not an accident. You're not a fluke. Make your existence count. And a lot of this comes from the Hindu theological classic, the Bhagavad Gita. They talk about this concept of bhakti, that you don't have to become a priest or some sort of monk that's divorced from the rest of society. Instead, just by living your life and doing your best with a focus on value, you end up touching other people's lives, and you make this wheel of destiny turn smoothly over and over. But if your focus is on how much I can take, how much can I get away with, how much can I extract from other people, you disrupt that wheel. So focus on the energy and value going outside of you and enriching others, and you'll be surprised as to how much better the world would be, at least in your own microscopic terms. But it also comes back to you. Remember, you reap what you sow. What does it mean to dream of having friends who are homeless? When you see yourself witnessing a good friend or somebody you know on a deeper, intimate level going through homelessness, your subconscious is trying to communicate to you that your sense of connection with others is under threat. Maybe you put neat, compartmentalized lines in your relationships. You're basically saying to yourself, you're my friend, but you're only my friend up to this extent. This is almost unavoidable, because we live in a fast-changing world where people come in and out of our lives, and it's very easy to look at things purely from a transactional perspective. Put in an unkind way, it's very easy to constantly ask yourself, what can I get from you? How do I benefit from this? What's in it for me? Your subconscious is showing you by positioning your friends as homeless. An important truth regarding the limits of that kind of thinking. Because people have value in of themselves. They're not just a means to an end. You have friends not because some way, somehow, at some point in the future, somebody would lend you some money when you're going through tough times. That's not it. You're friends with people because they are who they are. That's the way you should be friends at the very least. You're not out to change them. They're not there for your entertainment and amusement. They're there because of who they are. And you build bonds based on that. And in the same way, you're friends with them and they treat you as a friend because you are who you are. They're not trying to extract something from you. So when you see your friends become homeless in your dream, your subconscious is trying to break this compartmentalized bonding that you may have made, these tactical alliances. And it's basically trying to wake you up to the fact that there are deeper forms of bonds. There are deeper levels of meaning when it comes to friendship. And it seems that you're just settling for the bare minimum. What does it mean to dream about living with multiple homeless people? This is a very interesting dream image because the focus is not so much one individual person going through the challenges of homelessness, but you're seeing a broader perspective. You're focused on the numbers. And when you see yourself living with homeless people, not just passing through or just witnessing this from a safe distance, your subconscious is trying to speak to you regarding universal truths about confidence, connection, and identity. Because unless you figure out what your purpose is in this universe, you will, symbolically speaking at least, be homeless. You'll be jumping from one source of confidence after another. Once that gives away, you desperately look for something else. And it's no surprise that the suicide rate in different parts of the world is very high. Because it may seem from a surface level that people have a lot to live for. Maybe they have a good job. Maybe they're surrounded by material blessings and whatnot, where they have a great education. They have everything to live for, but the problem is they have nothing to live from. They feel hollow. They feel numb. They're constantly moving from location to location, much like a large group of homeless people. And when you look at a homeless person, they basically try to clothe themselves with whatever they can find. There's a tremendous amount of insecurity. Your subconscious is trying to communicate to you your need to connect with a more universal form of confidence. Because whatever scraps of symbolic clothing you may have used in the past as well as now, maybe it's a temporary relationship, maybe it's the gym, maybe it's a great job that pays a lot, or whatever else, you know full well it's temporary. And you need to get straight to the root. Where do I place my confidence? How do I become part of something larger that won't go away? And of course, since this is a deep and profound personal issue, the answers can only be supplied by you. So at least think at this level. And the good news, if you want to call it that, is that you're not alone because you're part of that group of homeless people surrounding you, confused, lacking direction. And instead of looking at this as completely negative, understand that there is something positive about the fact that this is a universal question. And if it is, then feel connected to this universal search and pay attention to what other people are doing so you can see if those answers that they may be uncovering may work for you, or at least take some gems from other people's discoveries and forge your own path. Whatever the case may be, work on pursuing that path. What does it mean to dream about being homeless in your city? If one of the more distinctive features of your homelessness dream is the indication that you're in a specific geographic region, then this indicates a sense of loss of place. Origins are crucial to human beings. When you ask somebody, where are you from? A lot of people might think, where am I geographically speaking at this point in time? But that's just a surface reading of the more profound question of where do you belong? Where are you accepted? Now, different people from different parts of the world add different dimensions to this. Basically, they read it as, where is your bloodline? Where is your ancestral history? And by definition, where is your culture? Because as individualistic as we may be in the West, the reality is that as human beings, we are walking graveyards, according to the great Yiddish writer Isaac Bashevis Singer. When you see a person, you see a walking graveyard. Why? The dead and their memories make up a large part of that person's identity. A lot of the people who help you become who you are have passed away. Also, as when you are aware of family history, or even if you're aware of just where you are and its history, culture, and traditions, by definition, you are a graveyard because it took thousands of years of past traditions, past wisdom to constitute that quote-unquote place, which is not really a place. It's more of an area of consciousness. I know this sounds deep, but on a practical level, if you were to erase somebody's memories regarding where they are, their cultural origin, you destroy their humanity. Because that is where they belong. That is where they're accepted. That is where when people look at them, they say, you are part of who I am. We may not be connected by blood, like you're my cousin or anything like that, but the fact that you live here and that you look a certain way, that you talk a certain way, that you believe in certain things, we're connected. And when your homelessness dreams focuses on your city, it is speaking to this deep level need for belonging, acceptance, and origin. So ask yourself, what is my personal narrative when it comes to my origin? And if you have a clear answer, let's say you're Armenian and you're Armenian Orthodox, or you come from another place in the world and you have a certain tradition, what does that mean? Because those traditions, those cultures speak to certain values. They speak to a certain way of looking at the world, and that is part of what makes you rich. That is part of what makes you interesting. So reconnect with that. And of course, this doesn't mean that you wholesale accept that. It has to make sense as far as your day-to-day existence goes and as far as your daily identity goes. And this is the identity that you have freely chosen. But that's still part of the conversation. Because a lot of people neglect this, or they treat it in terms of an automatic kind of identity, and that's really too bad because a lot of that wisdom, a lot of those coping mechanisms can help you tremendously today. And I'm not talking about just saying, "Oh, I'm part of this group, so you're part of that group, so let's help each other out." I mean that happens, but it's deeper than that. You have to understand that regardless of who you are, whether you are Filipino of a certain sub-ethnic background or you are Romanian from a specific part of Romania or wherever else in the world, millions of people through thousands of years passed on their wisdom in the form of culture. And it really would be a shame for you to just leave that on the table and deny it and just say, "Oh, I'm just going to focus on something else that is totally different from that." It's like leaving a secret weapon on the table and refusing to even acknowledge it. I'm not saying that you should fully conform to it. I'm not saying that this is the only parameter or the only way to define your identity, but it helps. It adds value. It spices things up. So explore this aspect of your persona, and you'd be surprised as to how much richer your life may be. What does it mean to dream about being homeless in an unknown place? The exact opposite of being homeless in a city in your dreams is being homeless in a place that has no name. In fact, you don't know where you are. This dream symbolism speaks to a deep and profound sense of disorientation, or as Karl Marx says, alienation. You feel that the value of your life, the work that you produce, the connections that you have with other people are unsettled. In fact, you really can't quite put your finger on it, but you feel that you don't really belong anywhere. Everything is constantly new, which can be exciting, but at the same time, it lacks definition. It lacks context. Unlike being homeless in your city, which has a certain character, a certain history, and an accumulated store of wisdom passed on through thousands of years and experienced in different ways, you're just left with this sterile understanding that I'm just alive today. I get to make my own rules. But do you really? Where do those rules come from? It's easy to feel disconnected, and especially when you're going through your Facebook feed and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, and ultimately you run the risk of defining your identity based on what's important to other people. And by the time you get what they have, you realize that maybe I was barking up the wrong tree. I don't really want this. I don't really want this. So where do you end up? So when you see yourself being homeless in an unknown place, this is your subconscious speaking to you regarding a sense of disorientation, disconnection, and alienation. You're looking for meaning, but you don't want to admit it because maybe you're afraid of religion, you're afraid of tradition. These to you are like outdated ideas. But look past the obvious. Look past your pre-existing or preconceived biases and understand, why is there religion? Why are there philosophical traditions? Why do people think this way? And you will notice that some of the answers are actually quite universal, regardless of where you are and regardless of what historical time you're in. So start there. What does it mean to dream about seeing a lot of homeless people? This dream image is quite different from the previous section where we talked about you being in the midst of a large number of homeless people. You yourself are homeless in that specific context. In this one, you're just looking at a large group of homeless people, maybe from a drone perspective overhead or from far away. Whatever the case may be, there is some sort of comfortable distance between the homelessness and the desperation, dislocation, destitution that you're witnessing and your current state. And your subconscious is actually trying to speak to you more in terms about the meaning of that distance. You may be losing your ability to connect with people because it may turn out that you are looking to connect with people based on how ready you are to understand them. And this is quite tricky because a lot of times the misunderstanding that we experience in our daily world arise from the fact that we define and categorize people and refuse to acknowledge their specific reality. After all, by doing so, it's going to disrupt the narrative. We'd rather not wake up. We'd rather stick to what we think we know about other people, or either in terms of groups or individuals, than be bothered with actual first-hand information. So with your dream, that your subconscious is focusing more on the distance and how it actually hurts you. Because eventually reality is going to bubble up to the surface, and for a lot of us, it's going to come in the form of a nasty surprise. So think about things that you assume about people in that who are you're close to. Start with those people. And then try to see them with fresh eyes. Pay close attention to what they actually say instead of what you expect them to say. Start there. You'd be surprised. So once you open your mind to experiencing other people this way, you're less likely to categorize them, lump them together, come up with all sorts of blanket generalizations. And this ultimately makes you a better person because you get to deal with reality as it exists on the ground. And the problem with the way we deal with other people, especially those from different backgrounds, is we engage in such generalizations and unfortunately we don't deal with them as we would like other people to deal with us, which is as individuals. This doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. I just want to point that out. But it is your responsibility to yourself, if you want better outcomes, to go the extra mile and try to know more about people. Well, of course, you have to do this safely. There has to be return on effort. You can't go out on a limb and put yourself at risk, financially or otherwise. But there has to be some sort of healthy balance so you can grow individually. What does it mean to dream about seeing yourself become homeless? This type of dream image focuses more on the process of becoming homeless. In reality, homelessness, at least in the United States, has two very disturbing dimensions that social workers and civic leaders really need to address. And we're talking about drug addiction or substance abuse and mental health. Those two factors play out in a process that leads to prolonged homelessness. Does this mean that people who don't have substance abuse issues or mental health problems don't become homeless? Of course not. But their homelessness, generally speaking, is temporary. For instance, you may have lost your job and you're behind on the rent, so you get kicked out. Um, in the worst case scenario, you might have to spend a few days on the streets, but eventually you can reconnect with relatives. You can um, get access to local shelters and that can help you get back on your feet. But if you're suffering from drug abuse and or have mental health issues, then your homelessness period gets prolonged because you have to deal with other challenges in addition to the day-to-day logistics of getting a roof over your head. When you see yourself turn homeless, your subconscious is trying to shine a spotlight on the mental and attitudinal changes that are going on in your life right now because your old confidence, the things that you assume to be true, that you used to draw your identity from, are changing, and you may not be aware of it. And you may be entering a prolonged period in your life where you feel ill at ease. You don't quite know where you stand, and things are up in the air. And now this doesn't. When you see yourself turning homeless in your dream, this is not necessarily a prediction that you will be homeless. Instead, it's actually much deeper. It indicates a sense of being unsettled to the point that you're insecure. You don't know where to draw your self confidence from because you don't exactly know who you are, where you're going, what to go for. And this can take the form of issues at your job, issues at school, or possibly your relationship with somebody you really care about, like your father or your mother. The focus here is your subconscious is trying to draw your attention to the process of becoming insecure, the process of becoming emotionally destitute or mentally or emotionally unsettled. So focus on that process. How do you handle it? How can you prepare? Who can you turn to? Ask yourself these and other questions so you can have at least a game plan. And if you do go through transitions, and believe me, transitions are one of the constants in life, you increase your chances of quickly landing on your feet. What does it mean to dream of giving money to a homeless person? There are several ways to help homeless people. You're probably already aware of this. One of the most effective is to simply share with them your food. Another effective way is to take them to a place that provides shelter and help for people who have become homeless. These these have a far greater impact than simply giving a few dollars to a homeless person. But if the main focus of your dream is the money that you're giving to a homeless person, this indicates that your desires to connect with others are coming from a sincere place. Your sincerity is never in doubt. That's not the issue. The issue is, are you helping or are you enabling? And and I'm not talking about necessarily about homeless people in your waking life. I'm talking about people close to you, your friends, your family members. And a lot of the times when we feel that we're supporting them, we're actually enabling them to keep on or to maintain their rather unhealthy mindset. For instance, if you have a friend who has issues with a coworker, or she says that this other friend of yours is a bitch, and she just complains and gossips to you about your other friend. You guys are basically talking behind your other friend's back. Do you think you're helping your friend? Do you think you're bringing out her better angels? Or are you enabling that person? Of course, you're the only one who can honestly answer this. But when you see yourself in your dream giving money to a homeless person, and the central focus of your dream is the money changing hands, this speaks to your subconscious issues regarding enabling friends. Be there to help. Don't enable. Don't encourage their worst instincts, because this is your way of contributing to that person's positive development, and you're not doing anybody any favors cultivating their negative side. Now, this is kind of tricky, because if you don't get along, like if you have a friend who basically just wants to backstab people by gossiping about them, and they can tell that you don't want to participate, it may lead to tensions. And before you know it, you become one of their quote-unquote enemies, and they're doing the same thing to you. So you have to know how to play the game, but at the same time, you have to have the right goal, which is to be part of the solution, not the problem. What does it mean to dream of being chased by a homeless person? Well, but the scariest dreams you could ever have involves being chased by a homeless person, because you don't know how it will end up. It may seem like that person is at first homeless, but it turns out in your dream that they're an assassin, or they're a madman. One of the more common dream motif is being chased by a madman or getting stabbed. But in this context, what is chasing you is your insecurities. What is chasing you is the part of yourself that feels unsettled, undefined. And this is actually a positive teaching moment, or a moment of realization, because you can ask yourself, why am I feeling insecure? Compare that feeling with your material reality. Maybe you have a job. Maybe you have a home. Maybe you have a stable family life, and you have friends. It seems that everything is normal, but why am I feeling this insecurity? Why am I feeling that I'm being chased? And this opens the door to deeper levels of self-awareness regarding issues you may have in the past, or your relationship with the past. A lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. Basically, part of yourself is asking, a lot of good things are happening to me, but why me? Do I really deserve this? And usually people who go through that mindset and internal dialogue are people who achieved a great success in a relatively short period of time. So their mental state of receiving their blessings, or being at peace with whatever success and achievement they have managed to create for themselves, hasn't really quite caught up to their material and social reality. So whatever the issue may be, this image of a homeless person chasing you is an invitation from your subconscious to think in deeper terms and to practice more self-awareness, so you can pinpoint where that sense of dislocation, disorientation, and lack of confidence is coming from. What are the risks of being homeless in your dream? If the main focus of your dream involves the risk factors of being homeless, and like you just say, it's the dream image usually takes the place of you witnessing the events that lead to you being out on the streets. Maybe, for example, you are seeing the landlord knocking on your door, or the landlord's representative telling you that rent has been due for the past 2 months. You focus on the reminder. Also, you can be visualizing a vignette or a collection of scenes that flash quickly, one right after the other, leading up to you losing your job and then becoming homeless. In this type of dream sequence, where the focus is on the risk factors or the contributing factors to homelessness, your subconscious is trying to speak to you regarding your awareness of the power of your decisions. Decisions have consequences. And when you decide to do certain things and you take action, that's when you change your reality. Because believe it or not, the world doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your motivations, doesn't care about what you plan to do, what you feel you should do. That's all great. That's all well and good. But the moment you actually change your behavior, or you make a certain decision and you follow through with it, that's when the world sits up and pays attention, because that's when things change. Because for every action, there's going to be a reaction. So focus on that level of analysis. How are you deciding things? Do you do things out of impulse? Do you do things because other people are doing it? Do you think you make a certain decision because you think other people are watching you and that's expected of you? Your process for coming up with decisions ultimately impact the decision itself, and that is what changes your life. So if you change your process, or you figure out a different way to decide, and lead to better quality choices, which could lead to a better life. You see how this works? So when you see when your focus is on the process of and the risk factors of homelessness, apply that to your life in terms of the different bases that you use when making a choice. What does it mean to dream of a homeless child asking for help? If the main focus of your dream is the age of the homeless person that's asking for your help, your subconscious is using this very clever dream imagery to speak to you regarding your relationship with your past. A lot of people define themselves by their past, and unfortunately, a lot of people define themselves based on their past failure or their unresolved issues from the past. In terms of unresolved issues, this can involve feelings of abandonment. Maybe your parents divorced when you were young and you never saw your father again. Maybe your parents split up and you feel that your father never supported you. Even worse, it can even mean that your parents didn't split up, but your father was emotionally absent. Whatever the case may be, you're dealing with voices from the past, and now it navigates their way to your present moment, and how this interplay changes or affects your decisions and emotional state today. So when that image of the homeless child really is an encapsulation, if you will, of all unresolved issues and open questions regarding a part of you, the part of the timeline in your past where you were unformed, where you were developing. So your subconscious is basically telling you that the reason why you're feeling kind of uneven or you're lacking confidence now is because of how you deal with your narrative. You can't go into a time machine. You can just hop onto a time machine and change those facts. They've already happened. The question is, how are you going to deal with the past in the present? The most common is to be completely honest with yourself. These things that I remember that hurt me, did they really happen? If they did, am I blowing things out of proportion? And if they actually happened the way I remember them, what meaning do I choose for them today? Because I'm a different person today. This should be your thought process. Of course, you're going to phrase the questions to fit your specific personality and circumstances, but you need to think about asking these types of questions because that's how you finally get a handle on the past. Do not let your past ruin your present, which leads to you ruining your future. I mean, I think we could all agree on this. What does it mean to dream of fighting with a homeless person? This is actually a very positive sign because it indicates that you are now waking up to this sense of disconnection, dislocation, and alienation that is rooted somewhere in your total persona. You're waking up to it, and not just in the sense that you're aware of it and that you will take note and handle it when you have time. No, you feel that you are actively going to grapple with it or are already dealing with it. This is a good sign. And when you see yourself fighting with a homeless person in your dream, this is really a state of subconscious awareness that this is already happening. You're basically just giving yourself a progress report. Now, the fight is far from over, and you just need to be aware that there's this fight going on so you can be more mentally and psychologically as well as emotionally conscious so that it leads to a resolution that you can be happy with. What does it mean to dream of a homeless person who you meet with? If you dream of actively meeting with a homeless person, this indicates that you have set in motion a deliberate, planned, and principled way to deal with your personal adequacy issues. Again, just like with the previous discussion, this is a positive sign because now you're dealing with issues. You're not just looking at this from I wish I can do something mindset. You're doing it. And you're doing it the right way because it's deliberate, it's orderly, it's structured, and it's not driven by emotions. So keep doing it, and keep a journal. Seek a counselor, maybe somebody who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy, and whatever challenge you may be. Maybe it's a challenge regarding commitment. It's a challenge with productivity issues, or a challenge with self-confidence and self-esteem issues. You will come out ahead because your head is screwed on right. You're thinking in logical, rational terms. It's time to congratulate yourself that you're going through the process correctly. What does it mean to dream of advice from a homeless person? If you see yourself sitting on a bench asking for advice from a homeless person, you are basically trying to learn from the parts of yourself that you normally would either disregard, overlook, deny, or constantly grapple with. You realize that everybody has a shadow, and the shadow doesn't necessarily have to be something that we constantly run away from or constantly triggers us to become the worst version of ourselves. Instead, it's there for a reason, and one possible reason, is that it has a lot to teach us. So you're thinking in these terms. You're thinking in terms of accepting yourself as a complete persona and studying and learning from the different parts that make up your persona. Again, just like the previous two sections, this is a step in the right direction. This is a good sign. What does it mean to dream of a city inhabited only by the homeless? If the main POV or point of view of your dream is overhead and you're seeing the city just full of homeless people, your subconscious is trying to tell you of your need to connect. You're beginning to see terms in terms of the big picture. You're getting this universal kind of perspective, and this is actually kind of a shorthand. for your subconscious waking up to greater realities. This can be religion, this could be philosophy, this can be different meanings of mindfulness and meditation, whatever the case may be. You're thinking in cosmological terms. This is a great sign, once again, because you're no longer a prisoner of your body that is restricted to a specific place on earth and imprisoned in a specific point in time. You're thinking in universal and eternal terms. Embrace this. This is nothing to be scared of. A lot of secular people think that once they start thinking of concepts of God, that this somehow means that there's something wrong with them, that they're superstitious, that they're backwards. No. This is an indication to further self-exploration, to tap into your cosmic level of curiosity. And you'd be surprised as to the great adventures, both within your consciousness and outside of it, that you are embarking on. Just pursue the answers in good faith. Don't pretend that you already know coming in, and you'd be surprised as to how amazing the journey would be. What does it mean to dream of talking to a homeless person and talking to a homeless person and seeing that person transform? Have you ever watched a M. Night Shyamalan movie? There's always a twist at the end. There's that plot twist that just blows you away. When you see yourself talking to a homeless person in your dream and they turn out to be a university professor, or they turn out to be the bodhisattva, which is a form of Buddha, and they end up blowing you away. Your subconscious is using this narrative device with an emphasis on surprise, to let you know that you have a lot of the answers already. And the problem is you expect the answers to come outside of you, but in reality, faith comes through hearing, meaning you just need to be stimulated, and a lot of the things that you already know suddenly line up with each other, and you get this deep and profound insight about your existence, about where you are, where you've been, how you've been dealing with people, and it all starts to make sense. And what triggers this a lot of the times is the sense of disconnection, alienation, and destitution that homelessness represents. But in another way, it's hard to really come to grips with key answers regarding your life when you're operating out of comfort. Why? Most people can be relied on to operate within the narrow confines and the tight boundaries of their comfort zone. That's why you don't grow. So when you are talking to a homeless person and they say something that blows your mind in your dream, your subconscious is using this symbol to tell you, maybe you will know more about yourself. Maybe you will get a more profound, practical insight as to how to better live your life when you make yourself uncomfortable. Maybe you take a job that you know will be more challenging. Maybe you explore unpleasant topics with people you're in and simple being.